Brilliant, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today's session, I'm going to talk about effective communication with teams, and it's quite a broad topic. So I've touched on a lot of things. You may want to delve into more depth in the question and answer session at the end, but I wanted to try and cover as much as possible, so that you might then kind of find topics that you want to dig into in a little bit more depth in the future. I'm hoping to give you some guidance and tips and tricks to help you build your communication skills. I'm happy for you to just crack on having a cup of tea while you're listening in and everything. So you're all comfortable. I'm hoping to cover today body language, asking good questions, active listening, motivating others, and effective feedback. A quick overview of why me. And why I've got some experience in this. So for those of you who don't know me or haven't spoken to me before, I started out in a marketing career in large corporates like Britvic and Mars and Mitchells and Butlers and Lloyds. And I moved back to Wales and worked in smaller regional businesses, and then decided I needed to work for myself and started up the joint venture partnership for Tiger stores in Wales and Bristol. And then in 2018, I sold the business back to the parent company. But during that time, we scaled really, really quickly. We went from 1 store to 9 stores in about 3.5 years. And we were turning up over about just over 5 million at the end of just as we exited. And we started with 20 team members in the Cardiff store, which is the one that's on the picture there. But as we grew over that 3.5 year period, we went up to about 120 permanent team members.
Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's interrupt. You're on your we haven't got any slides up. You're on the email.
It says I'm screen sharing.
Oh, is anyone else? All I can see is your email. Does anyone else see any slides?
Oh.
No, I can't see any slides either.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me just see my emails. Oh, wow. Okay, let me get.
I can't see anything on them. It's just your where you're going into the notes.
Oh. Hang on. Windows. Oh, sorry about this. Okay, so it's saying the screen sharing stopped. Hang on.
No, you're on make sure.
What can you see?
I can see you at the moment.
But nothing else. Okay, right, hang on. Share screen again. Share screen, share. Oh, sorry, that's my son. Can you see that? No?
No, I can see a picture of a little boy.
Yeah, that's my son. Hang on, let me just find it. Where is it gone? AGP. Right, is it open now?
Yeah, it's got into your PowerPoint now.
There we go.
Fabulous.
Can you see it? Right, fab. That was the page I was on. Okay, so yeah, we scaled really, really quickly. We went to 120 permanent team members within about 3.5 year period. So understanding how to communicate effectively on a one-to-one basis and on a company basis was something we had to learn very quickly. Of those companies that I worked for, the ones that were the most successful were ones they had certain things in common. So consistency in communication, language, templates, font, color. They were very open with all their information, so that you always had the information. I always had the information I needed to do my job, I never felt like anything was being hidden from me that I needed to know anyway. Simplicity, it was always very simple and clear what the priorities were, and they were communicated in a way that I related to and I understood. There was ownership. This kind of ownership the kind of openness led to ownership and encouraged and motivated others in the business to want to be involved in creating that strategy and tactics. And there was a lot of investment of time and effort and energy and resource into communicating. An example from when we were at Tiger, we knew that our customer service, so we were a discount store really, we knew that the only way we could stand out in the other discount stores that were around was our customer service. So for us as directors, we knew that was something we needed to invest time in communicating successfully. So me and my business partner would spend probably 4 12-hour days over the period of the autumn going out and training our team in group sessions. And I'm not saying that everybody has the time or needs to do that, but have a think about what your priorities are in terms of communicating, and think of, you know, where the resource needs to go when you are communicating. So why is effective communication important for business success? So what we communicate and when we communicate and the way we communicate has a massive effect on culture. Poor communication can lead to unmotivated teams that don't feel heard, and where they might even actually then start questioning their own abilities or the abilities of the organisation, and which leads to low morale, and probably reduced productivity as well. But good communication builds trust and understanding with every team member and connects everybody towards that one common goal. So, you know, getting your communication right is really, really effective in building your productivity, your loyalty, your staff retention, etc. What does effective communication practically do to achieve this? So it gives the team a bigger picture, really. It gives them that vision and the tools they need to collaborate together. It demonstrates that common purpose, that shared vision and goal, and shows how all the different departments are, or, you know, depending how big your business is, you might have departments, you might just have people who have responsibility for certain areas, but it shows how they're all part in the same endeavour, moving towards the same goal. And it gives relevance, so it translates those business strategies and visions into practical ideas that mean something relevant to each employee. So let's talk a little bit more detail then about effective communication. And the previous slides outline that bigger picture, you know, the overall company benefit of good strategic communication. But today we're probably going to go into a little bit more detail on the individual informal communication with colleagues. Like I said, there's lots of types of communication. You know, you've got your group and organisation and departmental level tends to be a bit more formal and structured. Focus on directives, you know, things you need to do, and performance, and often one way it comes down from above, as it were. And then you have your team and one-to-one communication, which tends to be more informal and conversational. It's a two-way dialogue. There's lots of different levels of communication, and also you could talk about you know, communication to external stakeholders as well. There can be different ways of communicating and different styles of communicating depending on who you're talking to. We can communicate in lots and lots of ways these days: email, letter, meetings, WhatsApps, voice messages, phone calls, video, Slack, whatever. There's so many different ways of communicating, and like I said, the audiences can be very, very varied depending on what your role is and what your business is. There's lots of reasons to communicate, so sharing strategic vision, agreeing strategic direction, collaborating, sharing information, criticising or praising people, or warning and explaining to people. And this information can be misinterpreted. So if you think about like Chinese whispers, you know, because of all the different types of communication methods and styles we've got today, it's quite easy for things to be misinterpreted or diluted as they're passed along, just by somebody the different tone or language or type of that's relevant to each type of communication, or just simply the person who you told the information to has misheard and misinterpreted it. So pay attention to the way you're passing information on. If it's important information for this strategic direction of the business, particularly, it can get diluted. So, you know, that's why you need some sort of consistent approach. Different preferred methods of receiving information. So everybody has a different way they like to receive information. Some people prefer to listen, some people like verbal direction and information, other people like to see it written down or see it in pictures. It might be to do with when they received it as well, you know, what else was going on at that time. So, you know, have a think about that when you're creating communications and creating strategic direction around your communication. We had at Tiger a specific set of KPIs that we would like to manage every we used to manage the business, and we liked all of the business to know those KPIs and how they were relevant to them in their team. So each team had their own kind of KPI dashboards that was up on the wall, quite visual in each of the stores. But the store managers also could have that as a conversation with us, or they could have it in a spreadsheet, however they preferred to get that information. And it meant that we were all pulling it towards the same goal. There's also different learning styles, as well as the way people receive information as well, which may mean that you have to be mindful of that when you're trying to communicate a certain message across the business. Spending time thinking about the message you want to share and how you're going to share it, what the outcomes will be of you sharing that message is a real investment. Often we can think, we can just be quite flippant and throw information around. And I've always thought that, or what I've seen across my career, is that when people spend more time thinking about upfront about what the message is and how they're going to communicate it, they get a lot more benefit from the communication that's gone out. There's some tips here about how to make the communication effective so I've just talked then about planning and crafting your message and your communication. I think it's important to put that time and effort in up front. So how can you use a framework to do that? So I like this little 4 C's model. Effective communication should be clear, consistent, convenient, and compelling. Clear by not using too much jargon, making it short and focused to the point, concise, and this improves understanding of your message. Consistent, so the language, the templates, formats, timing and frequency, I think is super important, because if you're constantly putting out different documents to communicate a message, people don't know where to look. Not only having it consistent improves trust, but actually I think it improves efficiency, because people know exactly where to look for the information they need, because they're always seeing it in the same format. Convenient, so easy to access and easy to understand. I've seen many businesses where you can't actually find the information you need, or you only find bits of it in certain places. So make sure that it's easy to access, easy to understand, and in that preferred method of the audience. You don't want people spending half an hour looking for a piece of information they need. You want them to be able to get their hands on it, and this improves engagement because people are being given the tools they need to do their job. And compelling. So it's relevant to the audience, there's a bit of storytelling, and it's actionable. I think storytelling is really, really key to bringing a team along with you, and then so that they can see why it's relevant to you and why it's relevant to the business, but also more importantly why it's relevant to them. And storytelling often allows them to visualize where you're going as a business. And if it's actionable communication, then it feels like it's been worthwhile listening to. They know what they need to do to action what you've asked them. So that really will provide you with results. So like I said, we're going to focus a little bit more here on that interpersonal communication and some more practical things. So let's have a look at some of the basics. Just have a quick drink of that. So let's have a quick look at interpreting body language. Like I said, this is much more about the interpersonal side of communication. I've quickly gone through that kind of more strategic side. We know that there's been lots of studies about body language and what body language how it's important to the way we communicate. And there was a study by a chap called Professor Albert Mehrabian, who showed that in human communication, only 7% of the meaning was carried in the actual words used. So I bet you've all been looking at the diagrams and the screen more than listening, which is fine because that's how it works. He found that 38% was in the way we said the words, so the tone, and then the rest lies in everything else you're doing. So 55% of how we communicate, how we receive that message, is based on how we use our body and hold our body, and the way we stand, the way we sit, breathe, the gestures, the facial expressions. I'm conscious that I'm on the screen and I can't see the rest of you, and I can just see my face, and I can see me fiddling, and that's probably a little bit of nervousness, but that is probably something that you guys are noticing and picking up on. So you're providing bodily context for the other person to make sense of what you're saying. And that's why, as somebody who's communicating, it's important for you to be very aware of your body language. I would also say that in the past, certainly when I was very young in my career and very green, I know that I used to give away quite a lot with my body language, and one of my bosses pulled me up on it once and said, you know, even if you are frustrated or annoyed or bored, please don't let it show, because it's a reflection on the team and not just on yourself. So, you know, I think we're all probably very aware of it, but if you're not, then, you know, it's worthwhile thinking about it. So the next slide is some examples of positive body language. So head tilted on one side shows that somebody's listening or really interested in what's going on. Rubbing hands together, this is some kind of an excitement thing. So somebody's waiting in anticipation or can't wait to get on with get on with whatever's being talked about. Palms open and facing upwards is a sign of openness and honesty. And then standing straight with your shoulders back, like the chap with the blue shirt on, is somebody who's confident in themselves and they're relaxed. There's stroking your chin or beard. This is deep thought. Leaning in is somebody who you're very interested in what they're saying. You like them, you trust them, and you tend to lean your whole body in their direction. Direct eye contact. Now, in some cultures this isn't acceptable, but in our culture it's fine. So it shows you're confident and you trust that person, but try not to make it creepy or scary. Head nodding, so, you know, nodding along, showing that you're listening and agreeable to what's being said. Years ago, I worked in the hospitality industry, and we used to have something called the magician's nod. So this is a slightly different take on it, but if we were serving somebody, we wouldn't say, would you like garlic bread? We'd say, you want garlic bread with that, don't you? Oh, wouldn't you? We didn't say, don't you? We'd just go, you want garlic bread with that? Yeah. And then they would all just order it. It's fascinating, try it. And then a firm handshake just shows confidence and respect. So those are some positive body language techniques. Some negative body language. So, I mean, it's often it's unapproachable or defensive, I suppose. There's two sides to it. It's people who don't want to be there and don't want to listen, or people who are nervous or being defensive. And it shows you a bit closed off and possibly insecure or unapproachable. So arms crossed over the chest, everybody knows that one. It's possibly defensive or just disagreeing with opinion. Nail biting, this is stress, nervousness or insecurity, and people do it often without realizing. Hand placed on the cheek, boredom. Tapping and drumming fingers, that is impatient or tired of waiting. Touching your nose, which I do quite a lot. So, but it can signify a number of things. Sometimes it signals disbelief or rejection, or it could mean that you're lying. I promise I'm not lying, I just give it a lot. Placing your fingertips together, so that kind of steepling is a demonstration of control or authority. Head in hands, I mean, could be boredom, could be upset, shamed, be a various number of things. This locked ankles one was interesting when I came across it. That's nervousness and apprehension. I would have said that's quite relaxing, but maybe, you know, it's different for different people. Pulling your ear. So this is when people are attempting to make a decision but remain indecisive. So they're unable to come to a conclusion, which is interesting for me. Fig leaf pose, the one with the man with his hands in front of him, is basically just uneasy or maybe potentially a little bit introverted. Fidgeting with hands or accessories can be a little bit of, you know, putting your arm across your body just as a protective thing, or just boredom. And then sitting on the edge of your seat can be nerves or you're mentally on edge. So I mean, these are all things that we're very aware of, but some quite interesting ones in there. So how can you create impact with your body language? So eye contact is probably at the heart of it. Like I said, in our culture, eye contact is expected, not the same in every culture. Use of your hands, so, you know, using your hands in an interesting way, really kind of gets the listener to engage. Voice projection is really important if you want to get your voice across, your message across. Forward movement, and it says here greatly underused, so moving your body forward to make a point is really helpful when you want to get attention. So not kind of being oppressive, but actually just kind of leaning in, because it gives that sense of trust. And then facial expressions: smile, relax, be sincere. Just try and avoid things like frowning, looking away, raising your eyebrows. I'm terrible for doing that. Squinting, sighing, all those things that you know that are probably, unless you, of course, that's the point you want to make, but still I wouldn't advise it, because it kind of changes that kind of respect mode in the meeting. So one thing we've had to change over the last 2 years is the whole being in virtual meetings, and it's quite hard to show your body language in a virtual meeting. So here's some tips on how you can do that. So have a think about how you frame yourself on screen. So try to show your head and shoulders and the top of your torso and hands, particularly if you do a lot of hand gesturing. So I'm conscious, if I am gesturing my hands, I'm bringing them up in the screen so you can at least see that I'm doing it. I mean, it's not always easy to get yourself right in the frame and everything, but have a think about making sure that you're not just face on. People can actually get an idea of your fuller person. Be aware of your posture, so try not to lean or look forward, but then try and just be conscious of how leaning back in your chair might look. Or I mean, it depends what the meeting is about and who's in the meeting and how formal it is. Look at the camera, not the screen. I'm finding it really difficult. It is difficult to do because the camera's in the middle there, but I can see myself over here. So I'm trying to kind of look around to all the different places that I might be able to look. And don't forget to smile. It helps people relax. Pay attention to your facial expressions and avoid multitasking. I find it frustrating. I mean, we're all tempted to multitask, particularly if you're in a long meeting where you're not really engaged in what's being talked about. It's very easy to just pick up your phone or have a look at what's going on over here. But actually that just makes meetings a bit longer. So I would always try and focus on what's going on if I can. So moving on, now I just wanted to have a quick chat about asking good questions. So we ask good questions to get and maintain attention, to keep discussions alive, just allow us to kind of really collaborate and get under the skin of information or decision making. They encourage the listener to think about what we're talking about. It helps spread the discussion amongst other members. If you're in a large meeting particularly, you can ask other people's opinions. It helps to check that people understand what you're talking about, their prior knowledge and their understanding of what you're going to do going forward. Helps you to get agreement and get feedback, expand on topics, confront ideas and think about of how to whatever it is you're talking about, think about how to address it. So what is a good question? So there's probably 6 different types of questions: open, probing, hypothetical, closed, leading and multiple. I've put open, probing and hypothetical on the top line as good questions, and that doesn't mean you can't use or you shouldn't use closed, leading or multiple, but these are the ones that are really going to open up discussion. Open questions, so the what, where, when, how, they are about exploring and gathering information and giving other people in the meeting the chance to open up the discussion and raise concerns or raise ideas. So these are the most common questions that we would recommend using. Probing questions, this is when you want to get more detail, so and challenge ideas and stimulate a bit of thinking. So they're probably the open questions again, but but with specifics. So instead of just saying, why did this happen? Why do you think that machine stopped working? You know, it's getting into a bit more detail. Hypothetical questions. So these are really good to explore new ideas and solutions. So you could say things like, so if we were to implement this solution, how do you think it might affect X? Or if we were to do this, what would happen to this? So, you know, try and come up with hypothetical situations. It can help you to kind of think of the bigger picture. Closed questions are really good for helping you establish facts and information. So the closed questions are questions you can only have a yes or no answer to. So you can get the facts and information, but then if you want to find out a bit more, you have to then get into the probing questions. Leading questions, so these are not really recommended because you're telling the individual what you think they're thinking. So just be really careful with them, because you don't want to be influencing their answers necessarily. You want to be you know, getting their actual opinion. And then multiple questions, they can be really confusing. And often I'm terrible for doing it. If I'm very excited or really enthusiastic about something, I will ask. And actually it's much better to split them up and you know, do them all separately, from, you know, that get the maximum effect from them. So some other tips on how to ask good questions is make sure before you ask the question you do know your objective, if you have one. Accept that all the contributions, accept all contributions at the time they are made. So if somebody gives you a contribution, make sure you kind of acknowledge it. Start with general questions and then get into the details. Clarify contributions, so repeat them back, and I'll talk about active listening in a minute, but you know, if somebody says makes a contribution, repeat it back or rephrase it so everybody in the room understands the context. Encourage contribution by varying your style and types of questioning. What I find is that if you ask those questions, you're less likely to be telling somebody what to do. You're actually encouraging them to create their own solutions so that they are more bought into what's the task, the strategy, the information. I've often used people's phraseology to get buy-in to something that I've wanted to do. I might not want to do it exactly the way they wanted to do it, but I try and make sure I reflect some of their information or their idea into the final decision, because I think you get a lot more buy-in that way. When you are asking questions, try not to be vague or ignore ideas or people in the group. Don't put anyone under pressure. Try not to give up. If you really want an answer and you're not getting it, try different ways of asking it. Try not to force agreement. Please don't treat opinion as fact or values as fact, you know, opinions particularly. And if you insist that your answer is the only right answer, then you will reject all the other potential options that are out there. So another kind of couple of ideas I've got here about guiding the conversation through questions, not directives. So saying things like, we're agreed that, let's see what we agree on. It's rather like, let's imagine that. Those kind of hypothetical things are really good for bringing people along with you, and keeping your tone positive and enthusiastic is always beneficial. So I mentioned active listening just then. I'm just going to have a look at what is active listening. So active listening requires 6 key skills. It's paying attention, withholding judgment, reflection, clarification, summary, and sharing. So it really involves you giving your full attention and really listening to the speaker. So, you know, I'm one for drifting off sometimes if somebody's speaking, but being able to really pay attention and really give them your full attention, it helps you to understand what they're saying and respond and reflect appropriately on what's being said. and helps you actually retain that information for later. So when you're giving your full attention, you know, nod along, give eye contact, set a comfortable kind of tone as well. Withhold judgment. This is really important. I think, you know, we're all very keen to jump in, I think, straight away with our ideas and our opinion or our reflection on that. Active listening means that you need to have an open mind. So try to be open to ideas and try not to respond to them straight away. Listen to those new ideas, perspectives, rather than think about you know, often we are too quick to be thinking about what we're going to say next rather than listening to that person. And then I think that's when we might miss those new ideas and new perspectives, but also might end up judging a situation before we have the full information. Reflecting that data and content back. This is like holding a mirror up to yourself. So often, particularly with slow speakers, if they have a pause, you can maybe come in and paraphrase what they've just said. And this just shows that you are understanding points, or helps you to check that you're understanding points properly. You know, just say something like, I'm just interrupting just to check my understanding on this. And you know, reflect from time to time during the conversation so that you don't go off down a tangent. Clarifying, this is similar to reflection. You know, just don't be shy to ask questions to clarify information that might be ambiguous or unclear. I'm very happy to say when I don't understand something, and I know some people are a bit nervous of that, but I would absolutely always say, you know, ask those questions. It shows that you're only human, but it also helps improve the conversation. Summarize. So when you get to, you know, you've done a few reflections with the person, you've clarified a few things, you've kind of finished your conversation. This is when it's time to reflect. It's time to summarize what you've heard. So it's kind of like just a couple of paragraphs on, so this is what we've talked about, this is what I've heard, this is what you said, this is what we're going to do next. Is that your understanding? Yes, it is. No, it isn't. If it's no, then go back and repeat some of the other steps. But if it's a yes, then that's when you then think about how you're going to share that information going to other places in the team or to other stakeholders. And also, you know, it doesn't mean it's a one-way thing. So it doesn't mean that you've just got to take on board the other person's opinions and ideas, but it means that it allows you the opportunity to then introduce your opinions and ideas in a non-confrontational way. So that's questions and listening. Like I did say at the beginning, there's a lot to cover. So now I'm going to quickly talk about motivation and effective feedback. So there's some really interesting stuff in this motivation section. So we know, most of us know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where, you know, we have our hygiene factors at the bottom, things we need to live, and then it becomes a bit more about motivation and things like that. So, you know, we have to fulfill our basic needs before we can fulfill our psychological needs. Somebody called Hertzberg did some research into workplace psychology, and his theories about motivation in the workplace are well replicated and have a similar theme. So there are the hygiene factors. A lot of people argue that money is the main factor in motivating people, but actually that is classed as a hygiene factor according to Hertzberg. So those hygiene factors are salaries, wages and benefits, company policy and administration, job security, quality of work-life balance, those kind of things. The motivators, however, aren't necessarily the money or your interpersonal relationships. It's the sense of personal achievement, the recognition, the challenging and stimulating work, that sense of responsibility and opportunity to advance. So, you know, we often get kind of going, well, you know, what can we do to improve motivation? Oh, let's give them a pay rise. Let's give them some, I don't know, free donuts on a Friday. No, it's actually more about, can I get some training? Do I feel, do people respect me and you know, respect the way I do my job? Am I challenged at work, or am I bored? It's that, you know, am I going to be able to progress in what I want to progress in? So, you know, those are the things that are actually really motivating people. Gallup have been doing, since 2009, have been doing an engagement at work survey. So we know that engagement at work is linked directly to productivity, and the most successful companies have the most engaged workforces. So if I think back to what I said at the beginning with the companies that I felt were successful, they were the ones who were doing really well at communicating. What they're saying here is the successful companies have the most engaged workforces. So I don't know whether there was probably other factors included, but at least I knew that what I needed to do my job, I got praise, I got recognition, and I knew where the company was going and where I could go in the company. The most recent survey showed that global employee engagement is at just 20%. That was the 2021 survey. I have tried to find the 2022 results, haven't been able to find them yet. And Western Europe, so that's globally, and Western Europe was just 11% engaged. So this shows basically that 80% of staff are not engaged, and in Western Europe, nearly 90% of staff are not engaged or are actively disengaged, which costs money. So on the next slide are the questions that these statements, if the employees of the top performing companies strongly agree with these statements, and those of the poorest performing companies disagreed with them. So these are really, really interesting. I love these. So the people who, if you think about it now, the successful companies, everybody agrees with these. So I know what's expected of me at work. I have what I need to do my job. I have opportunities to do what I do best every day. I have received recognition or praise in the last 7 days. My supervisor or somebody at work cares about me. There is somebody at work who encourages my development. At work, my opinion seems to count. The mission or purpose of my company makes me feel my job is important. My colleagues are committed to doing quality work. I have a best friend at work. In the last 6 months, someone has talked to me about progress. This last year, I've had opportunities to learn and grow. So those are the questions that in the successful companies are being answered positively, and the least successful companies are being answered negatively. And I think that really, really shows us, you know, what people need for motivation in work. So I love that, and I think it's really important for people to understand that, because I think it really helps you see what you need to do as a business to motivate your employees, because then that improves productivity, which then improves company performance. So the last bit from me is effective feedback. So when you're managing a lot of people, it's a really key skill to give effective feedback. This is a session in itself. I'm just touching on it today. This is a huge session in itself, but I thought it was useful from a communication perspective to talk about it, because, you know, particularly if we talk about one-on-one communication in teams, we talked a lot about vision and mission and strategic direction, but when you're talking on a day-to-day basis, that's when personalities start to kick in. So having an effective way of giving feedback that is reduces the emotion and sticks to fact is useful for business leaders. Yeah, I'll leave that side up for now. There's two types of feedback. There's affirmative feedback, so helps to reinforce when someone has done something well. It's more than just praise, so you should specifically highlight what that person has done that was good, that they can replicate. So I don't know, thanks very much, Bob, for doing the notes in this meeting. You're really good at it, and actually it really helps me with my helps me focus on the meeting. So you're saying there, you know, thank you for doing those notes, they were great, you're really good at it, and it helps me. So that's really positive feedback, and it's genuine recognition. You need to think about genuine recognition rather than you know, made up recognition. So try really hard to think about things that are actively positive and actively helpful to the rest of the team, and think about why that is. because it can reinforce those positive behaviours. Then there's developmental feedback. I'm calling it developmental. It's not so good feedback. So this is when you're giving information about when somebody needs to improve, or on what they need to improve on. People can often react negatively. They might be emotional, they might be in denial, they might try to justify what they've done or rationalize it. And that's a tough place to be, because for you as a leader or a manager, you're having to take on that emotion from them, but also you're having to try and be as objective as possible. Here's some mistakes that people can make giving feedback, particularly that developmental feedback. The feedback judges individuals, not the actions. So it's made personal. It should actually be addressing the action that was inappropriate or didn't work very well, or didn't deliver. Other mistake is feedback is too vague. Try and be specific. Make sure you mention what it was that was useful or not useful. The feedback speaks for others. We can often be prone to listening to others' opinion rather than facts. So try to use what you've witnessed or you've experienced rather than using tittle tattle, as I call it. Negative feedback gets sandwiched between positive messages. Now, this used to be quite a common way of doing feedback, more commonly known as the poo sandwich, but with a different word. This is now seen as not the best way to give negative feedback at all. The feedback is exaggerated with generalities. Try and make sure you are being specific with your feedback, and don't be, oh, well, you make me feel like that, or because you do. Give specific reasons why that person makes you feel that way. What is it they've done? And then, because it then helps you to find the solutions. And the feedback psychoanalyzes the motives behind the behavior. And if you're a psychoanalyst, you don't need to be psychoanalyzing your colleagues about the motives. You need to be thinking about what's actually happened and what you need to do to improve or to move on. So there's a couple of models. This is called the Madassa model. So this is about, this helps you structure your feedback in a way that helps you make sure you stay specific, you stay objective, you don't bring emotion and personality into it. I'll leave that up on the screen. I'm sure I can share this afterwards. I'll get it to Lisa afterwards. So I'll just leave that there for a second while I have a drink and you have a quick look at that, and then I've got some more thoughts. There are various models out there. This one I find quite useful, as it's really good for me to help structure my feedback. Okay, so just moving on. This is another feedback model. This is the word feedback model. So again, similar thing. When to describe when you observe them, whether that's a positive observation or a negative observation, set the context. Observation, be specific and describe what you saw or heard them doing rather than making judgments. Reaction, explain your reaction to this behaviour, the impact of the behaviour on you and others, and their own success. And like I said, this can be positive as well as negative. We shouldn't be afraid to give feedback on positive behaviour as well. And so the last one, what would you like them to do differently or carry on doing if it's something that's been really positive? So I do like that model. It's slightly shorter than the Madassa model. And 7 elements of effective feedback. So make sure you're positive, make sure you're specific, it's individualized, it's specific, it's individualized to that person that you're talking to, it's timely, don't leave it too long. Particularly with constructive feedback, you need to get in there straight away, because You just need to address it as soon as possible. Be sincere and be proactive and be collaborative. So work, go back to those questions and asking good questions, and think about how you can work together to move forward. If it's a negative scenario or in a positive scenario, what you can do to build on it and make it better. So a lot of information. I hope you've got something from it. Something's been useful. We've talked about effective communication and the fact that it motivates teams to perform, it engenders trust, provides teams with understanding of what is expected of them, so supports successful business performance, and I didn't mention this, but it does actually reduce employee turnover as well. And we know that using the right methods to communicate takes time, effort and preparation. So putting some time and effort into preparing, maybe using those models before you talk to individuals, or preparing using the 4Cs model before you communicate something across the business is really, really important. So that's enough of me talking. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Kate. Lots of info there. Jay, yeah, the slides will be shared. I just need to make sure that your AG3s are sent back to me. I'm not sure that I've got your email address to make sure I get that off you. Does anybody want to come off? Alex didn't know about the resting on your fist being bored. So you do now. And anyone want to come off their mic and ask Kate a question now while you're on?
Don't have to, it's fine. I won't be offended.
Lots of info to digest on there, I think. If you do think of anything, fab, thanks, Jay.
Kate, it's Paul Thomas.
Oh yeah, go on, Paul.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you. I found that really, really interesting. Some of it was a reminder of things we should be doing, which we always forget now and again.
Yeah.
I just want to say, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Paul. That's really good. I knew a lot of it would be a reminder for everybody, but it's always worthwhile putting it all together. And there's always maybe something new. Thank you.
If anyone thinks of anything that you wish you'd asked and you come off, Kate, if they email through to us, is it all right to forward it to you? Yeah,
sure. No problem.
Fabulous. Alex, yes, no problem. I can send the slides out. I know for Jay and Alex, well, Alex, definitely, I sent out a GDPR policy, which we need sending back before I can add you to the system. Can you check that email for me and send it back? And Jay, I'll get one out to you as well. As soon as those are up and running, I can add you and get all that out to you and anyone else that wants the slides as well. If you think of anything that you wish you'd asked, then do send us an email. On the feedback that I send through to the feedback email, you can just reply back to me if there was anything on there, and I can get Kate to get an answer over to you for that. Any queries, concerns, you can also go to your relationship manager as well with the AGP team. So any problems there. So thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks, Kate, for giving up your time today. I think we've got a next webinar tomorrow, which is all about TikTok. So if anyone's on that one, and I know. Who knew that TikTok was so involved in business? But apparently it is. So if you're not booked on that one and you would like to, then that's all on Eventbrite as well. And I know there's another 4 sessions this week. So Alex, I'll check that and get it sent. Just check your junk email spam boxes as well for me for the AG3s coming through too. So as we get all those, you can all have the slides and everything there too. So thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you on another webinar and have a good one. Thanks, Kate.